See? You feel like you have the power?
I do.
Yeah. You do have all. Look at that. We can share the buttons.
We can share the buttons today.
Hey,
Not
welcome.
Close enough.
That's right. Welcome to the Crossroads Connect podcast, episode 29. Just racking them up. Here with Matt Manning, here with one of our Crossroads residents. Reagan is back in the studio. Good
Welcome
to have you,
back,
Reagan.
Thanks, guys.
Super exciting. We are going to be talking today. We're going to jump into what does beauty look like through cultures and for our culture in particular, and that's just a big thing. What does the Bible have to say about it? And so we're going to dive into all of that. But Matt and I were having a really fun conversation the other day about food, and he introduced me to this recipe for bourbon fried apples.
They're amazing.
I have yet to have them. So, Matt, for everybody's, because I think people need to know.
Yes.
We need to get this out. Where does it derive from, and what makes bourbon fried apples?
Yes. Yeah. Drunken Apples is
Apples.
kind of the street name.
Got it.
Yeah. So probably most don't know, but I actually put myself through college working in the restaurant business.
Okay.
So I was a broil guy. So steaks, chicken, fish, if you need it cooked, I can do it. So, and I grew up, my dad's from the South, barbecue's a pretty big deal, all that kind of stuff.
So is bourbon, right?
Yeah, the bourbon country of Kentucky. And so bourbon fried apples or drunken apples, or if you've ever been to Famous
Did you go to
Dave's-
school with Matthew McConaughey?
I didn't, but that would have been exciting.
No.
I think he's a few years older than me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, so bourbon apples are Famous Dave's. They have some, but they're basically like just take something healthy like apples and cover them in brown sugar and sweetness and cinnamon, and then just keep cooking them down until they're super soft and taste like candy.
Love it.
And
And
that's what they
bourbon.
are. And yeah, a little bit of bourbon.
Yeah. Is it just a little, or is it a lot? Can you?
Nope,
is
just
it
a little bit.
Can you?
Tablespoon of bourbon.
Is it like marinade? Like marinating a steak, you just soak the apples in it for a while, or is it a cooking process?
No, so you make up like the sauce in the bottom, and then you add the apples, and then you mix them in, and then you just let it cook down.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Caramelize?
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
They turn more soft,
Okay.
and so it's delicious. I can't wait for you to.
Yeah. I'm excited to
use the
try.
recipe.
You sent me a picture, and I thought it has to happen, and it needs to happen soon.
Yeah, because that night we had some smoked pulled pork, and drunken apples, and then I don't remember what else was on the plate, but it was pretty exciting. It was a pretty
Beans?
exciting meal.
Didn't you have beans?
Oh yes, yeah, baked beans. We made baked beans
Yeah, it's good.
and barbecue chips. Because can you really eat barbecue without barbecue chips?
No.
Not in my house.
Not successfully. Do you have any really good food that is not a normal food that you enjoy, Reagan?
I always have been critiqued for putting ketchup on my mac and cheese.
Ugh.
People
I would critique you, but I don't really put ketchup on much of anything.
Do you?
Oh, really?
You don't really eat anything. Do you, Reagan? Do you smother your mac and cheese in ketchup, or is it just
No.
like a?
Do you put it on your eggs
It's
too?
just yes, I do put it on my eggs too. It's just light. It's like the tanginess of it. I like it with
Interesting.
mac and cheese.
So when I'm making mac and cheese, sometimes I put barbecue sauce in the mac and
I
cheese with
love that.
jalapenos.
And
I would like
you
that.
pulled pork in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. Both of those sound better than hot dogs in mac and cheese.
Oh, can't do that.
I mean,
it's
that's-
like a
that's-
texture thing.
that's
for
what we
me.
make our
It's a
kids.
lot of starchy.
Your kids eat this. We would never do it.
We're gonna go order Famous Dave's, and you guys get mac and cheese and hot dogs.
That's because they don't appreciate Famous Days, right?
That's fair.
Yeah,
And
totally.
we can't afford it for everybody.
There
so
you go. Hot dogs and mac and cheese.
Oh man! So we've been doing something really cool at Crossroads that Trevor actually has initiated, and that's the Crossroads Hot Sauce.
Yes.
Which has been a hot commodity. Have you guys enjoyed the hot sauce that has come from Trevor? And he actually gets it made professionally from a local guy, right?
Yeah, from Danny Cash.
Yeah, Danny Cash.
Danny Cash.
Yeah, man, I've heard nothing but good things about this hot sauce.
No, it's really good. And so, yeah, Danny basically took his hot sauce and threw on our label.
Yeah.
So it's Danny Cash hot sauce that
Yeah.
goes for $6-7 a bottle.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's really good. I went with the garlic one. So I'm on bottle number 2.
Nice.
I bought 50 of them, so I've given most of them away.
I'm still learning.
I mean, $50 worth, not 50 bottles.
Oh,
Broke.
yeah.
Yeah, 12 bottles. I'm sorry. I made myself look really great there.
Matt's like, give me more
12.
give me more bottles. I'm making it rain.
That's right. Give me $1,000.
Just keep them coming. No, we've had. I mean, I'm learning how to eat hot sauce because I've never used it before. I've always used just like barbecue sauce, and so remembering that it's something that can be used for flavor is something I'm training myself to. But we've given it to our neighbors, and our neighbors are loving it as well.
Yeah, that's where I do eggs. Put the hot sauce on the eggs.
I could try that.
Ketchup. Yeah, that's really good.
I mean, we put it on like burritos and tacos.
Now,
and
which
stuff.
one do you eat? Because like you look at a tomato and you start sweating.
That's not true. It's not true.
Ketchup is hot sauce for you.
I don't like ketchup because I don't like the flavor. That's the thing is I don't want it so hot that I can't taste it. I want to be able to taste it. And I really, actually the flavor I love is a spicy sweet.
Yeah,
Like
me
that
too.
combo, I will eat that all day long. And it doesn't matter how hot it gets. As long as it has the sweet to balance it out, it's money.
That's good stuff. I hear that Trevor's working up some barbecue sauces for the summer.
Yeah, I heard Father's Day.
Yes, that's the rumor
Yeah.
on the street. I can't
And-
verify it because I haven't actually seen it.
yeah.
And he doesn't let the senior pastor in on this stuff, probably because I spill secrets. But
Yeah.
I hear,
As we are.
I hear that, that barbecue's on.
I'm really hoping so because I would gobble that stuff up for sure.
Yes.
So that's food. I'm just thinking about beauty and what it means to be beautiful or attractive or any of that stuff. And I was thinking about just through history and even like way back when with the Egyptians and how they started. I mean, they're the first ones to really do makeup, right? And putting makeup. But then, I mean, even through like biblical times, you see different. I was thinking, we've been watching The Chosen, and I'm thinking a man in that era, what are they looking for, and what would be attractive to them, in a spouse, and then obviously in medieval times, I would be super beautiful in medieval times because I'm very white and pasty, and I think that it was white and fat, right? So maybe I wouldn't be.
Throughout history, white and fuller figured is more beautiful. Not till recently is thin and tan more, because thin and tan was poverty and work is what that spoke to.
Right. I was thinking of like African cultures and the different things that they do for beauty. I know that there's the one culture, I don't know if they still do this or not, but they put the rings on their necks to make their necks really, really long. Or they put like gauges in it. We would call them gauges. And we do that some too. But like they make their earlobes like super huge. Obviously we look at it and we go, what in the world? Why would somebody do that? But that's totally, I'm interested where these things come from. In China, they would bind their feet so that they would have these tiny, like messed up feet. Could they walk? I have no idea.
I guess.
I mean,
Reagan?
I know that it paralyzed some women, but like really deformed small feet.
Yeah. And corsets. That's another one that just popped up. And I was thinking of Pirates of the Caribbean, wearing the corset so tight that you can't breathe because it gives you the proper figure.
Yep.
So, man, it's amazing to me all the things that we do as humans in order to make ourselves attractive, and that's not consistent. And so, what about, let's just look at America, right, for the last 50 years and different fashion trends and things that have gone on in order for people to find themselves beautiful. So we'll just go through it, okay? So 50s. Let's name some fashion trends of the 50s.
A-line skirt, really tight, small waist.
This was greasers, right?
Yes.
For guys. Yeah, so they had the skinny jeans.
Is this where they would roll up the cigarette pack in their?
Yep.
Yes, I'm totally out of my element in the fashion space.
This is
Leather
Grease.
jackets.
Can you relate to Grease?
I can relate to Grease. Back to the Future.
Yes.
Right there. Back to the Future #1.
Was that? Oh, yeah.
That was the 50s.
They went to the 50s. Yeah. I think that's a fun era, actually.
I think I would fit in really well there.
In the 50s?
In the 50s.
I think I could make a pretty hip greaser.
Yeah, the simplicity of life is appealing.
Yeah.
Mowing the lawn.
That's right. With a lawnmower, not a electric,
That's right.
or not a. I guess we have electric ones now, not a gas one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember being a kid, being able to go and play until it got dark? Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Yeah. And now it's like we're afraid to let our kids out in the front yard without having an adult out there. Anyway, that's a topic for a different time. Okay, so now we roll into the 60s. And I'm trying to 50s, I always blend 50s and 60s probably more than I should. But are there any defining characteristics of the 60s that you can think of?
I'm just thinking of the sexual revolution of the 60s where I don't know that fashion changed drastically, but leaning more towards the 70s, that is pretty marked by fashion. And so I just think of that evolving out where you have kind of the legalism and conservatism of the 50s and then heading to the 70s where it's going to become a lot looser.
Yeah.
And a lot less locked down. Women are going to look differently. It's going to change the role of women and men
Yeah.
in relation to each other.
Do you remember the 60s?
No, I was not yet born.
I didn't think that you were, but I just thought I'd give you a hard time. I can't remember. I know definitely the 70s. I start thinking of my parents, and I think of like the old pictures of my parents and what they were wearing. And my dad would wear. There's a picture of him, and he has like this huge tie.
Yeah.
That I would. Sorry, Dad, but it reminds me of like a clown tie. But that was the fashion of the time, and I can only imagine what my kids are going to think of me when they're my age.
Yeah,
But
well, the bell bottoms, the tie dyes,
Yeah.
all that stuff of the 70s, that's kind of coming back in. My daughter, who's 8, is looking for bell bottom pants to wear. Like,
Yes.
70s are back.
70s are back. 80s are also back.
Sadly, yes.
Oh, man. The mullet.
The mullet, mom jeans for both men and women.
Yep.
now. Yep.
Man, Ezra, my oldest, is like, I want a mullet. And I'm like, please, no. The right thing that you want is a haircut.
Right.
Let's change that up a little bit.
Yes, but the rock bands of the 80s, that seemed pretty cool.
And they had their own style as
with
well.
the leather and
Yep.
all
And huge hair.
Yes.
And again, coming back to what we're talking about, these are all ways to express beauty, right? And in that era, like we look at them, we're like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was like, man, did you see that girl's beehive? I don't know. I mean, that was going back further than the 80s, but
Yeah.
Threw me for a loop there.
yeah,
Yes.
sorry. But like that was something that they're like, man, that's hot, man.
Yeah.
I love that beehive. It's looking good. Good job, Dottie. I don't know. So then we jump into the 90s. Now we're getting into our youth, right?
Yeah.
Jinkos. Do you remember Jinkos?
I remember crisscross was a big deal.
Yes.
Right? Wearing clothes backwards
Yep.
and
Makes me jump.
jump. Yep. I remember parachute pants from MC Hammer.
Yes. I wore those all through like even elementary school. I was wearing those, like the multicolored crazy pants.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
We had the tight roll jeans.
We got a light down. It's all right. Must have died.
Yes.
Sorry, poor light.
Did you guys ever do frosted tips?
Yeah. Well,
I imagine you frosted your tips. I
did.
No, I was never.
I bleached my whole head.
I went bleach in college. Yeah. Early 2000s. I had big long hair. Just mushroomed out like.
Yeah.
And it was all blonde with my red beard.
Oh man,
Nice.
I want to see that picture.
Yeah. I stood out.
Yeah. We need it.
Yeah.
It needed to be like
See
a
if it's around there
social
somewhere.
media.
I think my mom might have
hit.
burned them all. She wasn't very
no.
excited about that.
Oh, bummer.
She's like, these just need
Yeah.
to be erased.
Yes.
I did some color as well in middle school.
Yeah.
Like blue and green, and I feel like that was the one place that my parents were like, express yourself.
Yes.
Do whatever you want with your hair.
That's kind of
Just-
the way I am with my kids.
Yeah, just make sure to
long
be
as it's
respectful.
combed.
Yeah. Nice and brushed. Yeah. So I never had Jinkos, but I definitely had the jeans that went over my shoes. Like that meant I was awesome and cool. I wore a chain and I had, remember like the little ball necklaces? I had some of that
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, the grunge style of the 90s.
Yes.
The grunge, yeah. Emo.
And the emos.
Emo, I guess that was more 2000s, right? It was kind of end of 90s into
Yeah.
Late
2000s.
Yeah.
Where we really went hard into the emo stuff.
When the 2000s came around, I think beauty shifted pretty quick, particularly for women, because like anorexic thin became everything, right? Like you had jeans companies like changing the sizes. So like what used to be a 16 is now a 6 or whatever. And it was all about like the super, super thin appearance in women.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can kind of see that progression from the 70s where you have, the 50s, bathing suits being like prohibited. Okay, bathing suits are now allowed and they look like one pieces with shorts. And then you also see like women's shapewear, like the development of bras. Sorry if that's inappropriate, but
what's a bra?
It's called Cristione.
Oh, okay.
You like this evolution of women's shapewear and then how that grew to emphasize their figure. If you look at the figure of someone from the 50s or Marilyn Monroe, and then you look at a Victoria's Secret model, it constantly evolves to be more revealing and for feminism to be, for like a feminist look to be really extreme. Not just that you look like a woman, but that you look like, I don't know, a mega woman, in every sense of the word.
Sure. Yeah. I was thinking about the TV show Friends.
Yeah.
And how you can kind of like their style at the early seasons compared to what it is at the end, and that you can even see the evolution of fashion through just watching that show. Yeah. And it's not the only one. You can see it through lots of them. But I remember like seeing what they were wearing and going, that's cool. That's what I need. I want to wear that too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then I think when the millennials came of age in the, 2010s, like you saw some pretty significant fashion change again with the tight jeans, skinny jeans in that space.
And the ripped jeans. Drove all of our parents crazy.
Yeah. And the formal has almost completely dissipated out of culture.
Yep.
Right? Suit and ties, even at funerals these days. Like oftentimes if I do a funeral, I'm in the minority of men wearing a suit and tie.
Yeah,
Most people are dressed down in jeans and a nice sweater.
Right.
And that's changed.
Colorado is also particularly casual. We live in a very casual state. I've had friends tell me like, I can't believe this. Like I would never wear that. Like the grunge look is so embraced here. But it's fascinating just how cultural our attractiveness is defined and how that's different between cultures. And so I think it's not universal, but it's culturally defined. And as culture changes, so will that
it's
change.
cultural and generational, right? Because what you just said, right? When I first started doing ministry and some of the seniors in our church were frustrated because the younger kids didn't dress up for church. But in our minds, we were dressing up for church. It just looked different. Like my idea of dress up looked different than their idea of dress up.
It's probably when fashion started changing where jeans cost as much or more than suits.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And so the question really starts to boil down to is what really makes a person attractive, and how do we balance what culture is telling us with what we know is true from what the Bible tells us to be true about what makes a person attractive and good. And how do we battle that? I mean, because it's all around us, right? We're constantly bombarded with it, and it's not like it's going to go away. So we have to be able to handle that and walk through that in a way that's good and healthy and gets us to a place that we're not always staring at ourselves in the mirror saying, man, I'm not valuable because I don't look like A, B, or C, And so we really wanted to bring Reagan in today because we wanted a female perspective on this because certainly men and women are different. I didn't know if you guys are aware of that.
Yeah, word on the street is.
Yeah. And so our perspective is different. And so wanted to talk through, what is true versus what we feel, because what we feel is not always true, and that's just a reality that we have to work through. And so not what culture would tell us today, but it is still true nonetheless. And so Reagan, I just wanted to pass it over to you. When I say this and I bring this up, how do you address it personally? What does that look like for you as you have been, growing up and maturing, and how does that affect your relationships now? It's kind of three-parter there.
Yeah, that's good. So I feel like I was born self-conscious of myself. I was 7 the first time that I told my mom that I thought my thighs were fat, and the first time that I noticed other girls' stomachs were flat and mine wasn't. I was 7. And thinking back to that, I just feel grief. So I have been particularly plagued by cultural pressures for what a woman should look like. I had an eating disorder from probably 7th grade through my sophomore year of college, and those demons don't go away overnight. This has been a huge battle for me, and I have a lot of friends that sympathize with it as well. So culturally, we are flooded with images. We know that, and but also looking at other girls around me and comparing and seeing, oh, that's attractive. And then having, I guess, just a general personal weakness for it in general. Not everyone this is a sore spot for, and not all women this is a sore spot for, but particularly me. So
seems like it's a lot, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I
would say the vast majority. Yeah,
I just want to sympathize for women that are like, oh, it's never been something that I noticed. God bless that.
Yeah.
So I struggled with an eating disorder, and I remember my sophomore year of college. This is where my thought really shifted. My sophomore year of college, I really dove into the Sermon on the Mount, and I really dove into chapter 6 and reading Jesus saying, if God so cares for the birds in the air, and if he clothes the earth like he does, won't he be faithful to do that to you too? Like, you don't have to worry about what you look like, about what you're wearing. And when I just contextualized that and applied it to myself, this is what changed it for me. Is that life possible? And if it is, that's what I want. And what that required of me was surrendering my own idolatry, my idolatry of myself, my idolatry of what I thought I should look like, and accepting the freedom that Jesus offered me through that truth of, if the God of the universe, the one who created me, said, I don't have to worry about this, what does that life look like? And I can probably trust what he says, so let's go for it, And so I had a shift in mindset completely. And for women listening today, the world, what I would want to tell them is that the world is waging war on what you worship. And that includes ourselves. And if you have a negative body image, if you have a negative view of yourself, that's still idolatry. And that was really hard for me to face. But when I realized it, like, repentance just came flooding out of me, because I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. But for the Lord to confront that and say, like, to be kingdom oriented, to be truly invested in me and my truth, means you let go of the negative stuff too. And that set me free. So from
sounds pretty easy.
So easy. That doesn't mean that I don't wake up with days where that dark cloud covers over me. That is a lifelong battle. But the Holy Spirit has been so faithful to fight things that I couldn't fight. And so I remember, like, my freshman year of college, I ate nothing, and I was at the gym twice a day. And I remember over fall break, I went on a weekend trip with a friend, and we just ate good food, and I was so sick. And I felt like I was going to die. And I was like, why am I sick? And then I realized, I'm starving myself and working out a crazy amount. It was just not sustainable. So I had like a physical reason to do it, but also the mental reason to do it. Maybe men sympathize with this as well, but just it being debilitating, hating yourself, and exhausting. So there's that like mental side to it as well. So my sophomore year of college, when I really took in that truth, I really meditated on it. I started eating regularly. Movement looked more healthy for me. And over time, I stopped caring about that self-consciousness really started to fade. It's still there, but the potency of it is significantly less than it has ever been.
So where is the balance between idolatry and like taking care of yourself and being healthy? Because I think that you work out, and I've started working out again, and it's not, part of it is because in my mind, I want to look good to a degree, but it's also just because I want my body to be healthy. And so maybe you could speak into that just a little bit of kind of how have you, because you can easily go to the other extreme and be like, oh, it doesn't matter. I can eat whatever I want, do whatever I want. I can just eat sugar all the time and it's not going to be a big deal. When really that's not taking care of our bodies either. And so have you walked through any of that personally? Yeah.
For people listening today, what I would want to preface what I'm about to say with is that an eating disorder is a different animal. And so it's when you're coming out of an eating disorder, it's not so much about, do self-care at the same time, but it's about foods losing the fear component or the power over them. So you might eat more ice cream than you ever have before, and that's not unhealthy, and that's not a lack of self-care. But when we go to balance those two things, we have huge cultural pressures for this is what health looks like. It looks like this size. It looks like this weight. It looks like this in a bikini. And we really...
Or Speedo.
Yeah.
That's right. Euro shorts.
And so we really need to balance those two things where, so God created our bodies to be dependent on food. You have to eat. And one of the reasons we're dependent on food is for nutrients. Are you getting in nutrients? I wasn't. And I've been in periods of starving myself in lack of nutrients from not eating and starving myself from lack of nutrients in overeating. That can happen on both sides of the spectrum. And then your body was made to move. Are you moving? That does not mean you spend 2 hours in the gym, but it helps you mentally, it helps you physically. Are you getting some movement? So you really need to identify what are those core things that make up health and separating those from the rest of the cultural pressures or whatnot. So, and that takes practice. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and know the difference between those two, but trial and error.
Probably you can change goals too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like my goal is, man, I don't know, maybe it's an achievement of I want to lift this much or I want to run this much or I want to be able to go on a 4-mile hike and not die, as opposed to I want to get into a size 2 jeans.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think those are different goals that can push you. I've always said, like, if Satan had our culture in 2 hands, like with the women, it's self-image, and with men, it's pornography, and that they're always feeding into each other, right, in unhealthy ways. And so I also think that it's interesting in the world that in 2021, this fight for equality, when it comes to everything, right, from race to gender to everything, and yet it's still so prominent in our culture and accepted that that's the way that it's like women are supposed to look this way or men are supposed to look that way. But then at the same time, don't do that. It's like this thing that's always, it's confusing to me, what our culture does. And I mean, it's not confusing from a biblical stance. It's confusing that people can think both things at the same time. But Matt, where, I mean, like I said, I know that you work out, and do Orange Theory and things, and you try to take care of yourself. And so I'm just curious, from your perspective, whether in response to what Reagan was saying, or if you had any of your own thoughts from maybe a man's perspective.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to beauty, culture is shifting quickly in terms of men and what is beautiful. Like, I think for a long time, at least in my lifetime, what men looked like was not a huge deal, right? Like dad bods and all that kind of stuff was just what it was. But there seems to be, within the last few years, this shifting, particularly in terms of like the male model and what is it? What is the male model?
I want to apologize on behalf of all the male models.
That's right. You look so good today. In those spaces, and what is the picture of beauty? And sometimes, like Reagan said, I think the picture of beauty also gets confused with the picture of health. So for me, that journey of health and working out and all that really didn't come from so much like a beauty perspective. to a degree of just being unhappy with where I was. Like I walked by a mirror one day and I was like, oh my goodness, what happened to me? And
Dad?
Right.
Is that you, Dad?
And so that kind of went down the journey of what would it look like and setting the goals. So my wife and I run a lot of races. And so my goal's always been to run a sub 50-minute 10K in that space.
Have you done it?
My goal is for the Boulder for it to be. I'm on pace.
Nice.
To do it.
When is that?
End of this month in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
right.
Yeah. So it'll be exciting. We'll see if I can pull it off at 40 years old.
Yeah.
To hit that goal.
You can do it, Matt.
I can do it. And so when it came to working out, like I grew up sports, playing hockey, all of that. And so when it came to health, and like working out was not so much for beauty, but for performance and health. And I think that's still where it stands for me in that space. But man, in Colorado, particularly when it comes to the gyms, they are the church. They are the modern day church. The way that they function, the way that people act with them, the place of worship in that space.
You're required to tithe.
You're required to tithe. That's right. And so, yeah, when it comes to that. And so I think that's where, for me, where beauty and health kind of intersect. And one of the things that I teach in marriage counseling all of the time is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And particularly for married couples, my standard of beauty always has to be my wife. And so that is standard of beauty. So for me, Sarah is 10, right? And all beauty is judged towards what she is. It doesn't
I disagree. I think Christiona's 10.
There you go. And as you should. And so I think that when it comes to, particularly as a guy, regardless of what culture is speaking or saying, that our standard of beauty is the woman that God put in our life, and that becomes the standard of beauty for us. And if we operated that way, realistically, I think it saves us a lot from some of the pitfalls of culture, particularly when it comes to pornography.
Yeah. Sorry. Have you seen Shallow Hal?
It's been a long time.
Yes, I know what you're thinking of.
Yeah,
Yes.
You were just talking about that, and I was just thinking about character, and I was like, oh, there's a movie where the outside beauty reflected their inner character.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was Shallow Hal.
Okay.
That's what it was, yeah, with Jack Black.
I gotcha.
So anyway, sorry about that rabbit trail. But yeah, so I'm just, I've always thought too, when it comes to my own self, now that I am married, like I want to be attractive to my spouse. And so even like from the style of clothes that I wear, like I do have a say in it. I always joke that I don't, but I do. Yeah. But I want to wear stuff that she thinks looks good, because I want her to like what I look like. And if someone else would tell me, oh, why would you wear that? That looks stupid. I'd say, hey man, my wife likes it. And as long as she likes me, I'm happy. Yeah. So, that's kind of how I measure some of that stuff. But I really started working out again and things because I think it goes that we were made to move, right? And that like psychologically, I feel so much more healthy and energized, and it just does something in the body when you're using it. And it's not like way back when people were walking everywhere, right? We have a friend that's a nutritionist that would say it's not about how fast you go somewhere, it's about how far you go. Like if you run a mile or if you walk a mile, you actually burn the same amount of calories. I mean, obviously, if you're running, you're doing stuff with your muscles and things a little bit differently. But as far as burning calories, it's the same. And so, this just reality that by moving around and doing things with your body, it actually increases your physical health as well as your mental health. Yeah. And at least that's what it's done for me.
Yeah, and thinking about like the culture of gyms and fitness, how they've taken that message and made it so extreme. Mm-hmm. So if you're not doing a super hard HIIT workout, you're not taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. If you're not punishing yourself in the gym, you're not taking care of yourself. That's a lie. It's not true. Like including movement, that is just, that's step one, and that's your baseline. And that's been something for me too, just to separate those two messages. Or like, if I don't look like this, then I'm not healthy. Or if I don't do that workout, then I'm not pursuing fitness. Not true.
I avoided working out for a long time because I'm a small guy. And so like everyone else starts at like so much heavier weight than I'm able to start at. And I felt like I was embarrassed by it. Like,
And we were embarrassed for you.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Always helping build me up, Matt. Appreciate that. But you know, I just, I'm never going to have like an Arnold Schwarzenegger's physique.
Yeah.
Like my body is not ever going to build that way.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, if I just work hard enough, I'll get there. You know, building any kind of weight on my body where some people, you know, this is actually a trigger for me is that culturally it's not okay to call somebody fat, but culturally it's okay to make fun of them for being small.
Yes,
and man,
especially men.
I've wrestled with that my entire life, and it just really ticks me off. I'm like, I'm trying really hard to put on weight and I can't.
Yep.
You know, and I'm doing my best to eat. And Christiana and I have had conversations too where like if I get full, like I feel like I can't eat anymore. I get sick.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people I'll have that conversation with them like, man, I've never experienced that. You know,
Yeah.
I'll just keep eating and eating and eating.
Yeah.
And so I almost have to push through that. It's helped, again, that's helped as I've started to work out that my body goes, oh, okay, I need more nutrition.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to start eating a little bit more and things along those lines. But that's just one of those things that's kind of like a pet peeve of mine. Like, man, it's just as messed up to tell someone, man, you're small or you're whatever, you know, it's like, it just, I don't think that that's a cool place.
I think that's part of what's changing, particularly for males, and has been a part of the female culture for a long time, is that now we're being judged against images, you know, and that's where, you know, you're skinny or you're fat. That's where those, all of a sudden the self-consciousness starts to reign in us, is because at some level you're buying into the culture's understanding of what beauty is, right? And so,
or what it means to look or be a man.
yeah. So the reason that it hurts you, right, is not because you're skinny, right? The reason it hurts you is because that's being used in such a way that saying that you don't actually match what beauty.
You don't measure up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I just think that something the enemy is doing with this particular topic is pitting men and women against each other. If you look at our cultural messages of men and our cultural messages of women, you know, like men being the befuddling idiot and women being, you know, the sassy,
Like every Disney show that's out there.
And then with our body image as well. And I think that biblical Christian marriage just offers such healing ointment to that message in terms of embracing one another. And, you know, like you look at your husband, you look at your wife, and you're like, that is the cultural definition of a 10 for me. Like in God's cultural definition of a 10 for you. So, you know, I'm not married, but you guys are. And something that I can say is you contribute to changing the conversation through your marriages and through how you embrace your wife and through how your wife embraces you. And so keep going in that. And by not succumbing to, I don't know, culture's demands on what you look, but embracing your partner, like that is kingdom work right there.
So we've gone around a lot of things. I wanted to come back to you. I think you mentioned it already. 1 Peter 3, 3 and 4. It says, your beauty should not come from an outward adornment such as elaborate hairstyles, wearing gold and jewelry, fine clothes, but it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is great worth in God's sight, which I think is where Shallow Hal actually came from, was from 1 Peter 3, 3 through 4. Yeah, they're like, let's make a movie out of this. But
what's amazing about that verse is that it shows this conversation that we're having in 2021 was the same genesis of conversation that they were having in 60 AD, right? This understanding of beauty and where does it come from? What is actual true beauty in that space, and where the struggle is at. And the struggle, right, in 1 Peter and actually through the New Testament is always focused on women, not men, which I think just speaks to some of your struggle, Reagan, that this is a reality that's been a part of culture for a long time.
Yeah. And what I want to say about that too is that something about being female is that like God designed us to be attractive to men. Like there's a power in our beauty. And so for women listening today, the fact that scripture speaks to that more than it does men's appearance goes back to how we were made in Genesis 1 in terms of, our beauty is captivating and our appearance is powerful. And it's for that reason that we have specific stewardship instructions in scripture.
And I think that especially for young women, it's really hard for them to understand that. Because they don't recognize what it is early on. Like I've seen that happen over and over again where I see a couple get married and all of a sudden it like clicks with the woman that they go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that what I was doing or what I would, you learn that in relationship with your spouse, or hopefully you learn that earlier on, but definitely as you start being with, your husband, he starts to clue you in a little bit about, hey, here's some things that were going on in my mind when that is happening, And so I think for both young men and young women to start recognizing that early and realizing, I have a responsibility in that.
And for me, I, for a long time, thought that that was a bad thing and that it was something I should be ashamed of and that my femininity was something to be hidden. And so men, be careful about the messages you're sending to women regarding that. And then women, we need to filter that through the understanding of God created us powerfully and good. That it's good and it's good for our spouses. It's not good for general men population when we market that in such a way. And when we see scripture addressing the appearance of women, it's essentially using context like big gatherings or Christian gatherings to send a sexual message. And our culture is infatuated with sending a sexual message about yourself and about others 100% of the time. So in 1 Corinthians and in 1 Peter, what we're talking about is what is good for the whole, what is beneficial for the whole. And then it is not always appropriate to send a sexual message about yourself. And so using
At
wisdom.
church?
Yeah, and using wisdom without condemnation. This is not a condemning message. This is a freeing message. And this is not about shaming. So knowing that we carry a certain amount of power, we carry a certain amount of responsibility, and then it is not always appropriate to sexually market yourself, which is, it's one of the reasons why I haven't been to a lot of young adult groups because they feel like Christian clubbing to me, where women are dressing up and men are dressing up and slathering on cologne. And I felt so confused where I was like, this is not about worshiping God.
It's a young adult gathering to find other Christian singles.
It's about mating, and I just thought it felt so gross to me. And so if you've been in contexts like that, be aware of how you're using Christian gatherings to sexually market yourself. That's idolatry.
Sure. No, that's good. And that's a good word. I haven't ever thought of it as sexually marketing yourself, but that's absolutely what happens. And I think that you're right on with what Peter's trying to get at here. And of course, he wraps it up with, it's not just about outward beauty, right? That outward beauty, it doesn't matter. Man, I was just looking at Top Gun, and it says where they are now, right? And looking at all the different actors and actresses, and some of them have aged well, and some of them have not. But the reality is that we're all going to age, right? And cultural beauty is always quickly fading away, and there's no way to continually live up to that standard. And we've seen people try to even medically transform themselves, and they still look almost unhuman at times because of how far they've been willing to go with that. And so rather than focusing so much on outward beauty, really paying attention to our character and the beauty that is within. 2 Corinthians says, don't lose heart. Although the outward is wasting away, the inward is being renewed day by day, right? And so remembering that kind of that body versus character idea. And really that's when I think of a lifeline for us as those who want to live life the right way. The only way I think that you put it, it's freeing to realize, I really want to be focusing on my character and how can I build my character to be what it needs to be, as opposed to really driving with, I got to make sure that every hair is in the right place, that I have the muscle figure so that I can go to the beach this summer, and all of those things. So, I feel like you're ready. You got something.
I can make some stuff up.
Good. No, I felt the wisdom coming out of you. You know, I was ready.
No, when I was thinking of 1 Peter chapter 3, I think that how you summed it up is exactly right. It's not that Peter's saying here that outward beauty is bad, right? In this space, like Reagan said, that God has given specifically women power in their beauty. There's an attractiveness to women. And that attractiveness and that beauty and that sexual marketing, as we're talking about it, is to be expressed in marriage, right? Yeah. Between a man and a woman in that space. And so outward appearance is not bad. But when it gets to this, I think what Peter is really saying to us is that outward appearance is fleeting. Yeah. The reality is we're all getting older. And the older that we get.
Not me. No way, man.
No way, yeah, right? And so you just have to look in the mirror, right? To see that beauty is fleeting. And so when you get to a place where culture no longer values your beauty, and that's getting younger and younger in our culture, what is it that your life is actually built upon? And if you spent your entire life, I think what he's saying here is if you spent your entire life basking in the natural beauty that you've been given, when that is gone, what is the substance of your life? And what he's looking at wives in particular here is who this is being addressed to, is saying, hey, as much as you pay attention to the outward, make sure you're paying attention to the inward. Because one day you're not going to have the outward, and all that's going to be left for you is the inward. And the people that we know who are inward beautiful, that beauty lasts forever.
Yeah. Yep.
And those are the people that we admire. Those are the people that we look up to. Those are the grandmas and the grandpas that we go, man, I hope I'm like them when I'm older. And it's not because it's like, oh man, she's just glowing because she's so beautiful on the outside.
Her Botox, or she has no wrinkles.
That's right. Yeah.
You're going to get them.
Yeah, we make fun of those people.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Like the 90-year-old with no wrinkles?
Yeah.
That just seems awkward and weird.
Yeah, but those who have paid attention to the inward beauty and that flows out into their life and into others' lives, those are the people that we want to be around in the older years. And so I think that that's what Peter's pointing to is have that be your focus more than anything that is happening on the outside.
I always want my life to be life-giving and not life-draining to other people. That I'm adding value wherever I go. And that, I mean, obviously looks different, but that's when I think about those people, like, man, they're just so full of joy and so full of love, and they're just, the beauty exudes out of them.
Well, I look at it right now in Instagram, the way that Instagram is being used right now. And I look at it and like you have two segments of people. You have the younger influencers, particularly women, but also men who are using their bodies to gain a following. And then you have these older past influencers, right? These actors and actresses who were big in the, when we were growing up in the 90s that are now, they're not 32 years old anymore. They're 62 years old. And the pictures that are being posted, to try to still hold on to that into that space, or all of that kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, you're holding on to something
that you're never really going to be able to hold on
to. You're never going to be the 32-year-old version of you again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's good. Hey guys, thank you so much for being willing to talk about this. It's a big topic, and I don't think that we covered everything in just this one session, but it's a reality. Hopefully those of you who are listening are able to really think and pray and process through some of what's been said today, and how you can apply that to your life. We have lots of things going on. If you haven't yet subscribed to our podcast or to our YouTube channel, I want to encourage you to go ahead and do that. Don't miss anything. There's a little bell you can click on. It'll notify you every time we have something new and cool that's coming out. So thank you guys. Subscribed. You're subscribed?
I'm subscribed.
Good job. You're helping me out. I appreciate that. So, no, it's good to be with you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thanks, Jared.